ReAwakening by Thomley. Chapter 1.
Good morning, beautiful.
Alex smiled as the sun splashed across my eyes. I scrunched up my nose and buried my face in the goose feather pillow. It was cool and refreshing on my face. I always loved it when he greeted me that way. Even when my long hair looked like a bird was nesting in it, and his t-shirt consumed my petite frame, he still had the ability to make me feel like a beauty queen. Today, though, that wasn't the case. All I wanted to do right now was cry myself back to sleep. It can't be morning yet. I'm not ready to face today. Can't we just go back to sleep? Let's just lay here together until tomorrow gets here. I moaned as I rolled over. I pulled the covers over my head and laid silently. I knew I was being overdramatic, but I didn't care. I didn't want to get out of bed. I wished that I could close my eyes and wake up the next day. I didn't want to deal with any of the memories and emotions that this day would surely bring back to me. Today marked the second anniversary of my father's death, and it was still something that I had no idea how to deal with. I had my good days and even more bad days. I did my best to maintain throughout the day, but no one knew how often I disappeared to go in the bathroom and cry. Not even Alex. No matter what I did, I still felt the gaping hole that had been left torn into my heart. As far as I knew, it was the same story for my mom and brother. They were there for each other, but they rarely spoke about this anymore. It was still too painful for either of them to bear. Talking about it wasn't helpful therapy for anyone. I don't care what the experts say. The controversy surrounding my dad's unexpected demise still felt like a whirlwind to me. Dr. Thomas Brown was once a prominent scientist, at the top of his game, and as if that weren't impressive enough, he was an all-star father and husband. He rarely missed a family dinner or a game of catch in the backyard. Every recital I had, every heartbreak, he was there. He was my entire world. Then, one day, he just vanished. There was no trace of him anywhere. It was as if he had been wiped off the face of the earth, and the only remaining pieces of him were the memories held by those that he left behind. Every scientist remotely near the Tennessee area had been questioned by detectives, along with every friend and family member that he had. He was loved by everyone who knew him. He had no enemies to speak of. The police had no leads, no clue as to why or where he disappeared to. It was a complete mystery to everyone. I can still remember the first day he was gone, like it happened yesterday. I awoke to a phone call from my mother, and she was completely frantic.
I don't know what to do, Amy. Your father didn't come home from work this morning. His cell phone goes straight to voicemail, and the people at his office say that they haven't seen him since he left work yesterday morning.
My mother sobbed into the phone.
Where could he be?
Mom, you need to calm down. I'm sure there is a reasonable explanation for this. Have you called the local hospitals? I somehow managed to get out while fighting hard to not start crying along with her. My mind was racing, but I knew I needed to be strong for her.
Yes. None of them have admitted anyone by his name. I called the police department, but they told me I have to wait 48 more hours before I can file a missing person report. It's not unusual for him to stay at the office overnight, so I didn't think anything of it until he still wasn't here when I woke up. I am just hysterical right now. Amy, please, I don't want to be by myself.
Her voice cracked and my heart hurt for how helpless she was. I'd never heard her this broken. I will be at your house in 10 minutes. We will find him, Mom, I promise. As I hung up the phone, panic rushed through me. I had dreamt about this very thing 2 weeks ago. I should have said something to someone about it. Did I somehow cause this? I have always believed that many of my dreams are a glimpse into my future, but this? I've never told anybody about this belief. It sounded so crazy. Who would believe me anyway? Under different circumstances, I would think someone was crazy if they told me that. Unfortunately, I had never been able to distinguish which dreams were going to come true and which were merely dreams. It's always a toss-up. That ability would really have come in handy. I started running through my house, trying to get ready to head to my parents' house. I rifled through my drawers for clothes to throw on and quickly brushed my teeth. I was out of my house within 5 minutes, still looking like I took a ride on the Hot Mess Express. I arrived to find my mom in a disastrous condition. She was a complete wreck. Who could blame her? Once I was finally able to pull her together, we got in my car and began searching for my father. Mom and I drove around for hours. We went up and down every street we could find and checked every establishment he had ever been to. We knocked on every door of every friend he had and checked in every bar, restaurant, and bookstore he ever did business in. We found nothing. Absolutely nothing. After 48 hours had passed, my dad still hadn't been found. We called the authorities and filed a missing person report. The police conducted a massive search, along with friends and community volunteers. Everyone searched for 5 days straight, and we still came up with nothing. There had been no clues uncovered. No trace of him was found anywhere. Days and weeks passed by, and there had still been no added information. It was as if he had just vanished into thin air. My once close-knit family fell apart. We all ended up alienating each other. Each person was so filled with despair that we were unable to bear even the sight of each other. The slightest glimpse of everyone sparked various memories of my father for the others. They were memories that none of us wanted to deal with. Yet the worst part was the unknown. We were unable to be hopeful that he was alive somewhere, but still unable to fully mourn our loss. How could we bring ourselves to mourn? We didn't even know if he was dead or alive. There was always a slim chance, we tried to keep thinking, that he would either be found or return home to us. Months had passed when the cops finally got a call from a woman who found a body while walking her dog on a nature trail. Just as everyone feared, it was my dad. His decaying corpse was found in several segments, scattered around in a wooded area in the northeastern side of Tennessee. Everyone was shocked not only because he was dead, but because his body was almost 300 miles away from home. How could he have gotten that far, and why? What was happening? No one spoke a word, but I knew we were all thinking the same thing. Why would someone murder my father, and in such a gruesome way? Who would do something so hateful? He had been the most caring, intelligent, and driven man that I had ever known. Everyone he met instantly fell in love with him. People seemed to gravitate to him and his blinding smile. He had won numerous awards, but even the scientists he bested never seemed to hold even the slightest grudge against him. They always seemed genuinely happy for his accomplishments. So why would someone want him dead? Everyone was still reeling with despair when what was left of him was finally released to my family. My mother, Joan, arranged the funeral services. In the meantime, my brother James helped tie up all of my father's loose ends. I took it upon myself to go through my dad's belongings. A few things I kept for myself, but most of it I either threw away or donated to charity. I knew this task would surely be too daunting for my newly widowed mother to have to take on. She shouldn't have to be the one to do it anyway. Unfortunately, I did not get much support with what I thought was a good idea.
Shouldn't you keep some of these things? It is like you are just throwing away our father's legacy, James demanded when he found out what I had tasked myself with.
What is the point, James? Dad isn't here to read his notes. He won't need to wear his clothes. Hell, he can't even give Mom another hug. This isn't a burden she should have to bear. I cried out, angry that he was insinuating that I was just throwing my father's memories away. He of all people should know I wouldn't take this decision lightly.
Amy, you are probably right, but it still seems like we shouldn't rush into clearing out anything related to Dad. He was killed. It isn't like he wanted to leave us in this situation. There isn't some scandal to rid ourselves of. Do what you need to do, though. I agree that this isn't something that Mom should have to deal with. I just think that you should wait.
Within a week, what was once my parents' home was just my mother's house now. Family pictures were one of the few reminders of him that remained. I even moved things around so that my mom could stay in one of the spare bedrooms. Surely she wouldn't be sleeping in the bed she shared with Dad. That would be too hard for her to do. She would never admit it. but I knew that she had been sleeping on the couch ever since his disappearance. She tried to hide it, but I could tell. I didn't bring it up, though. Everyone grieves differently. The funeral came and went, and my family was finally beginning to reconnect. Our sadness had started to fade somewhat, and we were even able to laugh again. Sunday nights turned into the family night at my mom's house, and the three of us never missed it. We made a strong effort to stick together, to not let our bond slip away, especially for our mother's sake. It's what Dad would have wanted us to do. Had it not been for my mom, James and I would probably have slowly drifted away from each other. We would have surely lost track of each other's lives, only stopping to call one another on holidays and the occasional birthday. Thankfully, Mom made sure to remind us of who we were and how much we loved each other. She did all she could to hold on to what she had left. And then I met Alex. Alex Cardwell was in his late 20s. He had a nice car, an amazing house, and looked like he should be in a sexy firefighter calendar. He had very little family, no brothers or sisters, and his parents lived on the other side of the country. This was one of the first things that appealed to me. The fact that he did not have a close relationship with his dad meant that I would not have to think about my now non-existent relationship with my own father. Sensing that it was a dangerous topic, Alex never forced me to talk about it either. I was so very thankful for that. I know many people think that talking things out helps somehow, but I was definitely not one of those people. I'm more at the opposite end of the spectrum. Just bottle it up and let it go. Push it down far enough that it never finds a way back up. It worked for me. I met Alex while I was drafting an article for the local newspaper about a radical group that he was part of. As a journalist, I met a lot of people like him. They mainly protested scientific progress that they deemed unnatural. This included stem cell research, black hole theories, that sort of thing. They were a nonviolent group that heavily relied on press coverage to convey their message. This was the picture of the kind of man my father would never have wanted me to be with. Typical right-wing nut job, he would probably say, but I didn't care. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. Their agenda wasn't wrong either. They had plenty of research to back them up. It wasn't easy, though. Those with opposing views never stopped trying to discredit and shut them down. Regardless, he made me forget about my worries, and that was all that mattered. Alex had begun to fill a void that I had since the passing of my father, and it felt so good. He loved me, and I worshipped the ground he walked on. He pulled me away from the black abyss that my life had become, and I would forever be grateful to him for that. Alex was truly my knight in shining armor. However, no matter how much easier life became, I still kept thinking about something that I came across while cleaning out my father's office that day. It was a small, tattered notebook. Inside, I found odd documentations and what seemed to be frantic scrawling. It made no sense to me, and I had never heard my father mention anything of the sort. That notebook was one of the few things that I had kept for myself. I didn't tell my mom or James about it. This was just for me. I simply stuck it in my purse and toted it back to my house. I was always so amazed at the inner workings of my father's brain. This notebook that was full of his thoughts, even though I didn't understand most of them, was truly a gem. It was something to be cherished. I sat down in my living room one night when I was alone and retrieved the notebook. I scanned through it page after page, trying to somehow reconnect with my dad. If I couldn't talk to him, maybe reading his thoughts and notes could make me feel close to him once again. I couldn't make heads or tails of what he had written, but there were two constants I couldn't ignore: a man by the name of Xavier Holland and something about immortality. Immortality?
Please like and subscribe for more free audiobook content.